autumn has very much arrived here in the UK, and as a result the weather's a bit blustery, it's a bit blowy, it's a bit grey, and it's got me thinking about all of the things that I want to make this season. And if that sounds like your cup of tea, grab a cup of something comforting and let's go through some 2025 autumn knitting plans. Hi everybody and welcome back to the Knitting Plot. My name is Natalie. You can find me as Nats Knits UK on Ravelry, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, you name it. I'm on any of those platforms. I have a regular podcast here on YouTube, here at my channel. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you very much for bearing with me. You may have noticed I tried to release a video just the other day, but I had some rather nasty sound issues that weren't apparent during the editing process. So I uploaded that video and basically had to take it straight down again. So thank you for your patience if you've been waiting for this particular one. What am I here for? Well, let's start on that, shall we? So it is properly cozy season. I've had my blanket on the sofa most mornings because it's been really chilly. It is a bit grey. We've had a storm hit us here in the UK, Storm Amy, our first named storm of the season. So it's starting to feel like autumn now. We've had a couple of warm days, which have prevented me from throwing my my woolens on, but it is starting to cool down now, and this is my favourite time of year, not least because it means I can really hunker down and get some good knitting time in. But I've also got a lot of plans which need to be dealt with between now and December. So anybody who has visited the channel previously, thank you so much, by the way, if you are a subscriber. It's really good to have you. And if you're a new visitor to the channel and you've been drawn in by the knitting plans, welcome, by the way. If you fancy subscribing, just click that little subscribe button, the thumbs up, the bell icon for notifications. You know what you're doing. I don't need to tell you all this. But if you are a regular to my channel, you'll have probably heard a little bit of some of my plans for the month of December. So December for me, I want to be a me making month effectively, which means a lot of my plans for autumn revolve around getting some gift knits out. So I'm going to go through those, and some of them might be a little bit familiar. I have talked to them. There are some tweaks to some of the plans though. So that's what I'm going to talk you through. So why am I waffling on? Why don't we just get into it? So the first plan I had, actually, when I recorded the video with the terrible sound, I was actually a little way through this, and in the last couple of days I have finished it, but I'm going to show you it anyway. So because this forms really a part of some making that I'm doing for my nephews. There are two nephews that I'm making for Christmas this year, and the first one is getting an Oslo hat, and this is the hat that I have made him. So the Oslo hat has a sewn down folded brim, and it comes in a variety of different sizes. This is the adult small, so he's a boy. He's got a slightly larger head, but he probably wouldn't have looked right with the full size brim that the pattern recommends. So I have gone for a slightly shallower brim, but still substantial enough. And this is made up in Stylecraft Highland heathers, and it's in the Terrier colour. And I've just popped on one of those little, sort of made with love tags on it to give it a somewhat elevated look to the end product. I've made this hat multiple times before. In fact, you can probably see that one in the back there. I just think it's a really, really good knit. And once you've got the hang of, I tend to do a provisional cast on. It doesn't tell you to in the pattern, but I do a provisional cast on onto a cable, so that when it comes to sewing down the brim, it's just a nice, easy. There's no chance of me mixing my stitches up and not lining them up properly and ending up with a wonky brim. So it's just a really lovely pattern. This yarn I found a little bit uncomfortable to work with. It's a premium acrylic. It just dried my hands out a little bit. It was a little bit tough, but I think it's going to be a really, really good, durable, hard wearing yarn. And this is going to keep him warm on lots of playgrounds over the winter months. So I think he'll really like that. It is really nice and soft as well. So I have blocked it, even though it's acrylic, because I was blocking something else. But it's softened that up really, really lovely. So I think he'll get a lot of wear out of that, to be honest with you. So that's hat number 1, already ticked off my autumn knitting plans. The other nephew, originally I went to the Summer Wool Festival in the summer, funnily enough, and I purchased some sock yarn because my original plan was to make him socks for Christmas. And I purchased this yarn, which is from, and hopefully, apologies for the light, 'cause I'm now doing this in the evening, so the light's going to be really shocking. I've got like a ring light going on. But this is from Bellica yarns, and it is a superwash merino, a 4-ply, 75% merino, 25% nylon, and the light is probably going to well, actually no, the light's doing an all right job at sort of showing the colours, even though it's a bit dark. He's really into his blues. My niece picked this one out because as something that she thought he would really, really like. And originally it was going to be socks, but last year I knitted him an Oslo hat, and he will not take the thing off. So just to help his mum out more than anything else, so that she can wash it, I'm going to make him another hat, but this time I'm going to make the Musselburgh hat. Again, that's a hat I've made in the past. It's just a really, it's a great any yarn, anything you've got in stash kind of hat, because the way that it works is that you start knitting the hat, measure your gauge, and from there it calculates out, based on the size that you want to make, how many increases you'll need to do, how long you'll need to knit for, etc, etc. So you can literally do it with any yarn, any gauge. It's also double layered, so it's a super warm hat, because essentially what you do is you knit an entire tube. I'm sure you've probably heard of the Musselburgh, but if you haven't, you knit like a huge tube, so you've got sort of the crown shaping at either end, and then you tuck it inside itself, which creates a double layer. So really warm and toasty in the winter months. Those are the colours that he really enjoys, so I think he's gonna really like that hat. And like I say, it'll give his mum an opportunity to actually wash the Oslo hat that I made him last year. So that is the other hat that I'm making. The other thing with this one is that I go on a cruise at the end of October, and I need some travel knitting, and this is just, once you've got through the initial increases, crown shaping increases, this is just stockinette in the round for miles and miles. I don't need to have a pattern with me. I can just pick it up, take it wherever I am. So that is why this is going to be my travel knitting, because it's going to be super duper easy. Now the next thing on my list is actually, I've just made one of these already, but so you'll have seen in previous podcast episodes that I was making the Baby Bear Balaclava by Pernille Larsen. And this is the one that I have already made, and it's all been blocked, and it's ready to gift to my colleague who has recently had a baby. And this is super, super cute. Now, on the pattern, it does say to make it with a mohair, but keeping the mohair in the body or in the head of the garment and not around the ribbing around the face. For a brand new baby, I won't lie, I was a little unsure about doing that. So I refrained from using mohair with the main yarn. This is West Yorkshire Spinners Bow Peep Luxury Baby DK. It's incredibly soft, so I don't think it needed the mohair to soften it at all. And I was just a bit concerned about, sort of little mohair fibres, little baby breathing, all of those sorts of things. So I refrained from doing that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with the look of it. I think it's still just as cute, even if it's not as fuzzy. Now, one thing I will say as well is that because this is for a 6-month to 1-year-old baby, rather than doing, I'll put images on the screen so you can see what the balaclava looks like because there's two different options. This one I did with just the neck option, but there is also like a chest and back warmer option as well. And again, I just thought very small baby. I didn't know if that was necessarily appropriate, whether that might just be a bit too much fabric to get kind of caught up around little baby necks. So I didn't do it for that version. However, another colleague of mine saw it on my Instagram and just thought it was the most adorable thing ever, which obviously it is. And I've offered to make one for her little boy, who is about 3 years old. And for his, I am going to do the chest and back warmer. I'm still going to refrain from the mohair because as cute as it is, not necessary. But I've got left over from my Brooklyn Raglan, I've got some of this Drops Merino extra fine in the forest colour number 52. I'm sure it's called forest green on Wool Warehouse's website. I'll pull that back a little bit so you get a better view of the colour in the light, and that is quite representative of the colour. Again, this is a really nice yarn to work with. It's really soft. It's great for being close to or straight on skin. So I'm going to be doing this in that colourway for my other colleague's little boy. So that is another one on my autumn knitting list. Next on my list is something that I asked for your help on, actually. So I don't know if you remember, when I went to the Summer Wool Festival, I did that typical thing of going to a festival and having an idea of something that I wanted, but not having an actual plan for it. And I ended up purchasing this skein of Alpaca Pima cotton mix. It's a blown yarn into a Pima cotton tube, and it's completely undyed. And this was from a dyer called Innerfleece, albeit this being the undyed version. And it's so soft, and I'd only got the one skein, which, although it's a fingering weight gauge or a fingering weight yarn, I think it meets probably like a worsted weight gauge on the basis of the fact that it's quite floofy. And she told me that it was probably about 380 meters to a skein. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. And you guys came up with some absolutely lovely recommendations. There's a couple of cowls that have gone into my favourites list because they were absolutely lovely. But I ended up thinking a cowl wasn't the right way to go, just for a couple of reasons. I think the undyed nature of it, the cowls that you recommended, some of them would have just looked their absolute best in some really great colours. And this is quite muted. It's the type of thing that I was thinking I would wear alongside that hat back there because they're similar sort of tones and colours. But it is so soft, but it will also be really hard wearing because of the Pima cotton. And so I started looking into mittens. So some people suggested mittens, and I thought, well, I've got fingerless mittens, but I could really do with some full hand mittens. And I found the Chantal mittens by Morica Knit, which are a ribbed mitten. They're very simple, very straightforward looking. I don't think they'll be a particularly complex knit, but I just think they'll work really well with this. So I'm really looking forward to making those and having those to wear throughout the winter months. I think they're going to be really warm, and I just love the idea of having a full hand mitten. I've got, like I say, fingerless gloves. I made fingerless gloves last year that made the Cloudburst fingerless mitts, and I absolutely love them. They're incredibly practical. But on those really cold days where I don't plan to be, picking up after the dog or anything like that, how nice would it be to have super duper cozy full hand alpaca mittens? Oh, I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait. So that is what that is going to be utilised for. Okay, so I know I've talked about this one before, and I know this one was actually on my summer knitting plans and got bumped because my mum wanted me to make something that's going to be a Christmas gift for her niece. But I'm bringing it back because this is being cast on. It's getting knitted. Now, this is not a new pattern. This is not even a recent pattern. This is one that you have all seen before, but I truly believe, even though we get an influx of new patterns around this time of year, I truly believe that if a pattern has had your heart and if it speaks to you, it really doesn't matter how long it's sat there on your favourites list. You need to make it. There's just something inside you that says you need to make it. And so I am going to be making the framed sweater by Andrea Mowry. This was her Rhinebeck sweater probably a couple of years ago now, and the minute I saw it, I loved it. I do have a weird thing about like quilted stars and stuff like that, and I think the colour work is all over colour work, relatively cropped length, and she uses Spin Cycle, which is a colour changing yarn, to work through that full colour work body. I just think it's gorgeous, and I don't know what it was about it. It was something to do with the colours, but more than anything it was something about the geometric sort of quilted star look to the colour work. Now, last Christmas my brother and his wife bought me a sweater's quantity of yarn that was colour changing, and it's in all of my favourite colours. So this is the yarn. This is the James C. Brett Shhh DK, and again it's a very, very light weight yarn, but because of the fluffiness it actually knits up to a DK weight. So I am getting gauge with this yarn. I'm going to be pairing it with a cream colourway. The light is blowing that out. It is much more of a creamy kind of, yeah, like a clotted cream colour. So this is 80% acrylic and 20% wool. I've historically I've talked about some of the challenges that I have with wearing acrylic, and as much as I get incredibly hot, this is a shop bought sweater. It's going to be in an acrylic-y type yarn, and I wear nothing underneath these jumpers because I get so hot. I mean, it's very cozy, it's so very oversized, so it's airy. But this is my plan for this, is for it to be slightly, although cropped, slightly oversized. My hope, therefore, is that I won't get too hot in it. But I just love the colours. I've knitted up a swatch. In fact, if you wait there one moment, I'll grab my swatch. I've knitted up a swatch, which you can see here. So you can see it's running from the teal-y kind of colours through the grey purple and into the purple there. Again, the light is blowing it out slightly, but I think you get the general gist and the general vibe of it. And I've knitted that up in 4.5mm needles, which is as the pattern recommends. I am getting gauge. It is very light, to be honest with you. It doesn't feel like it's going to be particularly hot, which is great. But I think I'm actually going to knit it up in a half a millimetre needle size bigger. Not because there's anything wrong with the drape, as you can see the drape's fantastic, but because it's all over colour work, there is some rigidity in that fabric because of all the different floats. I'm still relatively new at knitting colour work, so I do think there's potentially some little issues there with how I manage my floats and how tight I keep them. And I know that will only get better with practice. But I was thinking if I go a half millimetre needle size up, that hopefully will create just a little bit more flex in the fabric, because what I don't want is when I'm putting it on for it to feel tight, I want it to have that oversized feel. So slightly bigger in the needle, and possibly then manage the size accordingly. But look at that, look how nice it is. It's so nice. Now, the collars, the shoulders, the cuffs and the hem are all done in a different yarn. And I'm going to be using Rico Creative Silky Touch DK. Let's see if that will focus, if I get myself out of the way. It's in this lovely teal colour. They call it vegan DK because they use vegan dyes for the yarn. It is 100% premium acrylic. It's very, very soft. There's a reason why they call it Silky DK. So I do feel this would be a little too warm if it was all over the garment, but it is just the shoulders and, you know, sort of all of your hems, edges, collars, cuffs, you name it. So I think that will be okay. And actually on the shoulders, it will probably be quite good from just a general fit perspective. I think it will sit quite nicely. It's got a bit of give in it that perhaps the James C. Brett doesn't have in to the same level. So that is definitely getting knit up this autumn. That's just my absolute number one aim, is to make sure that I've got everything off the needle so that I can do that. I've also got some socks that are gonna, you know, sort of plod away in the background, things that I'm already working on. I've shown on my podcast, so they will tick along in the background. And I've got some, I want to get some patterns in mind for when I get my advent in December, because that for me it's a sock set advent, which I'm really looking forward to. And I'd like to have a play with some patterns that I've got in my library already that I haven't yet done anything with, just to see if I get a vibe for it. Because some patterns, I'll be honest with you, if they're a bit too finicky, that drives me mad on socks. I want them to be a relatively easy to remember pattern repeat and a nice rhythmic knit. That's kind of important to me when I'm doing socks, because socks are quite faffy generally. There's lots of different aspects to building a sock. So and I want to try some different heel constructions as well, because I've always gone for heel flap and gusset. I've done an afterthought heel as well, but I wanted to try some different ones, and I may even have a go at a toe up sock. We'll see. We'll see. That could be too crazy. Obviously, I don't want to go too crazy. The last item that I would like to get started this autumn, and this really is a case of if I get time, because I appreciate there's a fair amount to do there still. But again, it's something I'm really keen on, and I would like to make the Midland cardigan by Laura Penrose. Now this is a garter stitch cardigan, and that is the huge draw for me. There is something about garter stitch, there's something about the squishiness of it, there's something about, you know, sort of not having to think about purling, just, you know, going, you know, sort of back and forth with a knit stitch, that, you know, towards the end of the year when I'm feeling like I need to slow down and just enjoy some, you know, some comfort knitting, that really appeals to me. Now obviously during December I'm planning to do a lot of knitting around socks because of my advent, but I will want some variety. And if I've managed to get my framed sweater finished, then I would like to start on the cardigan and have that for my big piece knitting, sort of perhaps over Christmas. Now the thing that I'm not sure of, I know that I want the pattern, I also know what yarn I want. I want to utilise Drops Air. Again, this is a great budget friendly yarn. It's a blown yarn, it's a super squishy yarn. I've heard great things about it. I kind of want this to be a cardigan that I'm not too precious about. So I wanted to use a more budget yarn because I want to be able to I want to throw it on over my pajamas at first thing in the morning if it's cold, but I also want to be able to wear it out if that's, you know, if I'm nipping to the shops or whatever, wear it during the day for work because I work from home, or I just want to be able to wear it a lot. But I'm not sure about the colour, and Drops Air, there are so many colours, and at the moment there's a sale on at Wool Warehouse as well, so I can get it at an even better price, but I'm not sure about what colour to go for. I know that I want it to be in the red pink family. I've got a vision of like a nice sort of bright red, something that kind of really stands out, because I've got a great graphic tee, and you might have seen the Crea Bayers merch, the, you know, sort of meet me at your local yarn shop. I love that t-shirt, and something bright would go really well with it. I'm also a big fan of like your magenta and fuchsia colours though, so I want it to be a bright colour, but I'm just not sure whether to go down the red route or whether to go down the pink route. And I'd love your thoughts. Tell me, what's your preference? Is red a good classic that you can wear with a multitude of other colours? Is fuchsia the right way to go when you think teamed with the blonde hair? You know, what are your thoughts? I'm not afraid of red. I've got quite red skin tone, and actually bizarrely it works better for me to wear reds and pinks. Despite that, I think maybe it just makes my skin tone look less red when there's something more red or pink on me. But yeah, I'm not afraid of a bright colour for something like that. I embrace it. I wear a lot of dark colours, but for a statement piece that's going to go over the top of perhaps a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt or whatever it might be, I'm all for it. Tell me what your thoughts are. Which direction do you think I should be going in, the red or the pink? And that is all of my plans for this autumn. I would love to know what you're planning, what you're working on now, whether you've got any gift knits that you're doing, whether you're knitting for yourself. I'd love to know if you've got any pattern suggestions from people that perhaps I wouldn't have heard of, some staples, some designers that you really, really enjoy knitting from, so that when I start doing my dig around of, you know, sort of my pattern wish list for the winter months, I've got some stuff to go through and to inspire me a little bit more. But now though, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. If you've stuck around to the end and you've liked what you've seen, please do click that subscribe button so I can keep you in the loop of how I get on with these plans through my regular podcast. But from me, I shall now say ta-ra a bit, and I hope you have some very happy knitting times ahead. Speak to you soon.